Hey fam, it's your girl, Top 13 Rebel.
Yeah, it's gone to Rebel's head.
Today I have a tournament. Today I have a tournament report. Today I have a report for the matches I played in Okoberfest 2020, where I played Sisay Jegantha. Before we jump into the games, let's talk about the deck I played. So to no surprise, I played Sisay Jegantha for this event. I actually brought another deck, but that's gonna be a different video later. Essentially, the deck wants to get Jegantha and Sisay in play, so Jegantha can tap for Wooburg and let Sisay tutor for Derevi. Derevi untaps Jegantha. I find Samut afterwards. All my creatures now have haste. I attack them all into open opponents, get untapped triggers off Derevi, and find Najila and go from there. As backup lines, I have Intuition, Brain Freeze, LED, and Underworld Breach. I also have 3 lines that generate infinite mana off Dockside Extortionist, one being Lord Drakis and a bounce spell, another being Phantasmal Image, Dockside, and Kenrith. The final new line has Yahini, Corpse Dance, and Dockside Extortionist. Now that we know how my deck wins, let's jump into the games. Game 1 is against Lavinia, Timnatana, and Damia. What a way to start the tournament. My immediate assumptions this game is Lavinia is very good for me. Since most of my primary line involves casting creatures and tutoring out from the deck, Lavinia doesn't really stop me there. Damia is a wild card. They probably are playing bigger spells we don't often see online like Damnation, maybe even a Villainous Wealth. Twice on Tana Timna, I've played a few times before, and have a very healthy losing streak to him, so I just need to get around his stacks and race him for the win. Let's look at some hands. This hand is bad. I could theoretically have a turn 1 Monolith, but moving Gigant to the hand doesn't do much for me when I can't speed up my mana generation. So turn 2, I'll only have 2 mana, and so on. We're gonna mulligan. A turn 1 Hierarch into a turn 2 Talisman into 4 mana on turn 3 is only okay. This has no means of being proactive, and even though Hands of Pure Mana is generally pretty good in this deck, keeping interaction in a pod with stacks is not ideal. This is our 5 hand. I'm actually pretty okay with this. It's not a fast win, but I like having a Vampiric Tutor and Notion Thief. I feel like Lavinia and Damia would both want to run Windfall, and Notion Thief is very good against Sylvan Library, Timna, and Damia herself. But at worst, this is a turn 1 Diamond, Hierarch into Monolith on turn 2. Then waiting while the pod is stacks and stealing draws off of Notion Thief. I'm gonna keep this one. I drew a Tropical Island, which was great, meaning I could have 3 mana available by turn 2. I used a Vampiric Tutor for a mana crypt, then moved Jegantha to hand. The plan is to play a turn 3 Jegantha into a turn 4 win. Getting countered here is really possible, but I don't really want to play a game where Twice develops with Lavinia or letting Damia get too far in the late game. I'd rather let Jegantha get countered, leave mana open for a Notion Thief, and hope to draw into my reanimation spells or another win con. On turn 3, Twice resolves a Goblin Bombardment. This bombardment's pretty crucial, as not only is it a sack outlet for Twice, but he's very aware of how my deck works and can stop my entire line by sacrificing enough bodies to kill Derevi. I tried to bamboozle the other blue players to counter the bombardment, but they didn't bite. And if he opts to kill Jegantha here, I can rely on Notion Thief and draw me ways to get back in the game while he loses Arbor, Birds, and more. Lavinia resolves a Rest in Peace, which means I have to play extremely carefully now. I realize all my lands are so graveyard dependent that I have to work with Twice to kill Lavinia. However, Lavinia does help my own game plan since I don't cast spells, so this turned out to be a really awkward game. Eventually, Twice plays Timna, Sylvan Library, and I activate Jegantha for Wooburg, spend the black and the blue, and tap 2 to cast Notion Thief to steal his draws. Lavinia decides to manage my Notion Thief, letting Twice draw off Timna. I resolve a Sisay and opt to find an Oko to El Katana. I can't let Twice develop his board state with more 1/1s, because as a creature deck, I lose all my opportunities to win when Twice can instantly wipe my board whenever he wants. Also, Oko helps build Sisay's power and toughness and can stop any Lavinia locks. The game goes on a bit where Lavinia resolves Omen Machine, Twice Slaughter packs my Jegantha, exiling it forever. Omen Machine flips over an Agila for me, so not to incur a Goblin Bombardment, I decide to swing into Damia to build my warrior count. I flash in Samut. Damia resolves a Runescarred demon, tutoring for probably a board wipe to remove the creature heavy board. We continue beating people up, and I cast Kenrith like an idiot, even though I anticipated a deluge or damnation. Our boards get wiped. I start animating my rocks into elks to beat up the table and build up Oko's loyalty count. Eventually, we go to time. Game 2. Yidris, Joyra, Gitrog, and me, and I'm in last. So this is an unlikely win here. I just gotta go fast. A Dox will be very good in this pod. We're all probably racing here, so there's no need to worry about interaction from their end. Hand 1. There's no mana, so we're gonna mull this. This hand's a little too slow, so next one. This one again doesn't have enough mana, so we're gonna go to 5 now. Now this is a decent hand, even at 5. We have a turn 1 vault into a turn 2 wheel. This hand's quite flexible, so it's a keep. On my turn, I top deck a gamble, so I play Taiga, gamble for Crypt. Luckily I discard Revival, then cast Mana Crypt into Vault, tap Vault, and move Jegantha to hand. Yidris plays a Dark Ritual into a turn to Necro, then he just pays 19 life, which is fine, and I assume we lose the game from here. Joyra plays a City of Traders and casts her commander, then dumps out 3 rocks and passes. On my turn, I play Ancient Tomb, cast Jegantha, pass, and pray. On Yidris' turn, Yidris plays Song of Creation, and I assume we are super duper dead. But somehow, Yidris didn't have enough mana sources to storm off. He plays a Wish Claw to try and find another additional mana source and passes me the Wish Claw. He even tries to counter his own Imp Seal to draw more cards. Eventually, he just dumps his hand, pays more life, passes. Joyra plays a Helm and Key, and I assume we're super duper dead again. But Joyra ends up drawing a bunch of cards and pass. On my turn, I use my Worldly Tutor for Dockside. Then I activate Jegantha for Wooburg, spend the red for Dockside, cast Jegantha, fetch out a Teferi, bounce Dockside, and win from there. Game 3. Surku, Yidris, Ikrom, and me. Again, another fast game knowing Ondis and the Yidris deck. Surku is going to be doing some control stacksy stuff, I believe. They're in the colors for Thoracle Console or Doomsday, but it's nothing I really need to concern myself with. Sorry, Surku. My assumption is both Storm decks will try and bait each other, and I just have to find an opportunity to sneak in a win from here. I thought about this hand, but no. Next hand. Nope, well away. This was sort of a keeper. I can hit a turn 2 Lavinia, but it doesn't help develop my own win, and it's very realistic that I could sit here with a Lavinia doing nothing, while the Storm decks sculpt and red blast my Lavinia when they're ready. We're gonna pass on this hand. This is such a close hand to being insanely good. An interesting thing about Sisay is going down to 5 isn't that bad if you're tucking away legends you need to tutor out. This hand is actually a Snap, Dockside, Lord Drakis win. Dockside is very good in this pod, and Jace will let me recur Imperial Seal for the bounce spell. This is gonna be a keep. On my first turn, I cast Imperial Seal for Dockside. I also drew a Mystical Tutor, making it really easy for me to get that Snap for Dockside. I play Jace on my second turn. So far, I don't mind letting this Remora slow everyone else down, as eventually, they're going to have to drop all their rocks that enables my Dockside. I top deck a Teferi, which is really great. I just need to hit a land and see a few more artifacts and enchantments to support my Dockside. I can fake a Teferi through to stop Yidris, then Mystical Tutor for Snap, bounce my Dockside for more treasures, and draw the Snap off of Teferi. Yidris gets cast, which is pretty scary. I really want to hit the land so I can play Teferi to bounce the Yidris, but Jace doesn't get me there with the looting. I awkwardly draw an Arcane Signet, and thankfully Ondis has a red blast for Yidris. Surku plays out all their rocks and an enchantment, definitely allowing me to hit the count I need for my Dockside. But unfortunately Yidris chains rituals into a Peer into the Abyss, and everyone's tapped out to interact with it. They draw half their deck, play Underworld Breach, LED, and we scoop. Paramount's Tana Taigam, Blue Farm, and Sisay Elk. I've played against Psalm's Taigam pretty frequently. You would know if you followed my Instagram. Again, there isn't really a different game plan here. I just have to hope I hit a fast Jegantha Sisay, as I can take the opportunity from the early turns of these decks, setting up to just go for it. Taigam will most likely have to answer Blue Farm. Paramount will have some disruption that is not likely affecting the creature-based strategies like mine. I believe I'm favored here. This is actually kinda okay. Turn 1 Sol Ring into a turn 2 Sisay with Fierce backup, but we can go faster, and the low color count is actually pretty bad. Now this is a turn 1 Sisay into turn 2 Jegantha in hand, into a turn 3 Jegantha. Or I can find Dockside off of Damir's Call, or I can disrupt the table with a wheel depending on what I draw. There's a lot of options here, so I'm gonna keep this. I top deck a Hall of the Bandit Lord like a goddess. This means I have the ideal turn 1 Sisay into turn 2 Jegantha to hand, and turn 3 Hasted Jegantha. I play a Plateau, Chromox eating the wheel, Sol Ring into Sisay. Turn 2, I play the tap Hall, move Jegantha, attack farm player, and pass. Blue Farm plays Cloud of Fairies, gambles, and unfortunately discards their Calling the Weak and passes. Paramount weighs on his options to stop me, but unfortunately he doesn't have enough mana to find a Playcrafter off his Survival of the Fittest, so he has to pass and hope Psalm has something. Psalm casts Taigam and passes. Then on my turn, I cast Jegantha, resolve it, tap Jegantha for Derevi, and win from there. Break time. At this point, I'm ranked first place with Michael Levine right under me. He goes to play another game, I watch him win, and now I have to play Leapfrog. Game 5. Timna Thrasios, Bralan Shabraz, Blue Farm, and Sisay Elk. There isn't that much to say for this pod. I'm just gonna go faster than TNT, ignore Bralan Shabraz, and race Blue Farm. Go fast, go hard, and don't lose. This hand's too slow. Next. There's no mana here. Next. This hand's close. The LED lets me discard Jegantha with Shallow Grave, but I think we can do better. Since we're at 5, this is going to have to be a keeper. This is a turn 1 Sisay into turn 2 Jegantha in hand. I can cast Noxious Revival on the land I discard a diamond and hope I hit another land. I top deck a Dark Ritual, which is crazy. Now I can Dark Ritual into a turn 2 Jegantha if I top deck a land. We play Crypt, Diamond, discard Tundra, and put Jegantha to hand. Pass. TNT follows up with Sol Ring, Diamond, which is fine. They're just setting up for value things. Turn 2, I decide if I want to cast Noxious Revival on the land. I choose not to, since I can cast Sisay this turn, then Jegantha the next. I top deck a Breeding Pool. I tap the Diamond for the Dark Ritual, Breeding Pool for green, and cast Jegantha. Blue Farm plays a Smothering Tithe. TNT casts Timna. On their end step, I revival the land on top of my library. This is to ensure I have enough mana to protect my combo with the Unsubstantiate in my hand. I play the Tundra, cast Sisay, tap Jegantha, and win from there. At the last moment, both Michael and Kazu jump over me in points, so I have to play semifinals. This pot is against Ryland's Tayum, Tsunami's Kinnan, and Akess, all very good players that know their decks super duper well. I've practiced against Tsunami earlier in the week, and I lovingly dubbed the deck as Have Everything Kinnan. Kinnan is extremely fast, but there's nothing in my deck to stop it. I honestly don't have a better plan than attempting to win through a disruptive board state, as Tayum will attack Artifact Mana with Null Rod, Collector Oof, or throw Kess off tempo with maybe a Thalia or Trinisphere, so it's best that I try to ride off of the board state that Tayum creates, and hope that he doesn't have an answer for my creature-based strategy. This is an interesting hand, but a little too slow, since it's hand when we can pitch it. This hand's definitely too slow. It's still a little slow. We're at 5, and we kind of have to keep it. Maybe I'll luck out with Tayum and Kess controlling each other. The worst case scenario here is I cast Sisay on turn 3, Jegantha to hand on turn 4, and then cast Jegantha on turn 5. I top deck a City of Brass and cast a Brainstorm on my main phase. I like main phase Brainstorms at this point because I have such a high density of rocks and mana sources that I could potentially hit a Crypt into Signet. There's very little reason for me to try and fake out interaction in exchange for potentially playing more permanents and setting up for a better turn. I draw a Corpse Dance and 2 lands, so this is quite good. Depending on how the board develops, I could Wishclaw for Dockside and then fetch Yaheni for the Corpse Dance combo. Tsunami plays 2 rocks and passes. On my second turn, I cast Wishclaw to set up for Dockside and pass. Tsunami casts Kinnan and Heuristic Study. Rylan tries to resolve a Null Rod, which would be huge against Kinnan and Kess. I don't mind losing my Wishclaw since a slower game plan of Sisay is excellent against these two. However, Tsunami has a Pact of Negation and Null Rod is countered. Kess plays a Talisman and Imperial Seal, letting Tsunami draw 2 cards. Given that a Dockside for 5 doesn't do anything for me at this point, I cast Sisay instead and hope we don't lose. On Tsunami's turn, he casts Transmute Artifact for Basalt Monolith. Kess didn't realize he was going to use a Transmute Artifact for the Basalt Monolith, so instead he opts to counter the Thrasios. Thrasios is countered, but the infinite colorless that he generates from Basalt Monolith lets him cast Phyrexian Metamorph, copying my Wishclaw. He Wishclaws for Mirage Mirror, gets infinite colored mana, and goes through his deck. GG. And we're back. This is my second cEDH tournament, and my goal was to reach top 13, which I did. However, I have some mixed feelings about how my deck performed and how my games went compared to the Best Boy Cup. A lot of the games felt like I lucked into them, as opposed to feeling like I really fought for the win. So if you read my report back in summer for the Best Boy Cup, you'd see that I did a lot more interaction and the games went a little longer. I affected the board a lot more, where I would play Fire Covenant back into Fire Covenant, or I would try and play a Sneak Attack in Jegantha. There was a lot more interesting games, and the games went a little longer. Meanwhile, this tournament, as you saw, the games were really quick, and I didn't really have any real counterplay or interaction in any of the games. In a lot of the overviews for each game, my plan was really just to play a turbo deck and just kind of go for the win. There wasn't really that much consideration about what my opponent's deck strategies were, because I kind of expected that's what they're trying to do as well. And a lot of the decks that weren't on that plan, I didn't really need to pay attention to them. Especially certain stacks decks, they don't really attack creature decks like mine the same way they attack storm decks. So really every game just kind of ended up being I really look forward to how the deck is going to evolve in the future, especially with Commander Legends and also playing other decks with my mentors and in Spiky Spirit Guides. Check that shit out. So thanks to everyone who hosted this event. It was super fun. Congrats to Tsunami for winning the finals, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.